I've never publicly spoken out about our experience, basically because we didn't want our daughter used for some unknown agenda. Vina got a hold of me though a couple months ago, and she was talking to me about where I grew up, and she had notified my mom that our well was contaminated. And this would have been in my early 20s. I don't remember being there when Vina stopped, but I do remember my mom initiating the getting off of the well water and hooking up to county water. Even as a child, I remember people coming in from the plant. I'd get home after school before my mom would get home from work, and someone would pull up in their utility truck or work truck from the plant, and two people would come in dressed in their blue suits and want to come in and take water samples. But I had seen it so often, I never really gave it any thought. I mean, that's just how we grew up. You know, they were all over our neighborhood all the time. I remember some mornings waking up where there's this thick black dust over everything, and it's on the houses and the cars and on the grass and the sidewalks. And people from the plant would come around and bring us detergent to wash our houses down with, or our cars, like that's going to make all this stuff go away. But you know, as a kid, you didn't think about stuff like that. What got me thinking about this, and what got my family thinking about a connection between our daughter and all of this stuff happening, was that when she passed away, we were all genetically tested. They wanted to test my husband, myself, and her 3 siblings, because they were just positive that one of us was a carrier to this disease she had, because initially it should have been genetic. They were just astounded that the test came back negative. My husband and I are not carriers. Our kids don't have it. What she was diagnosed with is called GATA2 mutation. She was the 58th diagnosed case with this disease. She spent her whole senior year of high school in Cincinnati Children's or at Ronald McDonald in treatment. And we had to be within 20 to 30 minutes of the hospital at all times. And what initially started as a bone marrow transplant that would keep us there 4 months turned into 2 bone marrow transplants and 13 months of living there without being home with our family. And I got to the point where I was so savvy at watching her numbers on her blood work, I would sneak her home on Saturday mornings, because we were not supposed to be away from Ronald McDonald for more than 24 hours, or you would lose your room. So I would sneak her home on Saturday mornings as long as her numbers were up, and I would make sure that she kept her mask on anytime we went home or anywhere we went. My husband would get the kids involved and disinfect the whole house, because we had pets. She had a horse that she loved more than she loved us, and she wasn't supposed to be around him. She couldn't be in contact with horse manure or anything like that. But I knew, as her parent and being with her all the time and watching her go through all of this stuff, I was not going to keep her away from her horse. That was what kept her going. And when we would go home, we would sneak home on Saturday mornings. We'd stay home. We'd stay all night at home. And then I would get her back the next day to Ronald McDonald, and nobody was the wiser, I think. I thought I was hiding it from her doctors as well, but they also knew that we were sneaking home, and they were okay with that because they knew she had been there too long and she needed to get home and see her family and see her friends and just be home for some time, you know. So she was diagnosed with something that is normally a genetic diagnosis. It's called GATA2 mutation, and it causes MDS, which is myelodysplastic syndrome. Had we not caught her disease in time, it would have developed into AML, which is acute myeloid leukemia. So basically, she had pre-leukemia. She had one bone marrow transplant, and then she got sick and had to take some very strong antibiotic medications for an infection she had, which wiped out the first transplant. So we had to get a new transplant donor, and she had to have another transplant about 3 months after the first one. And she was released then from the hospital in late March, I believe, which by then she should have been out and home because we went in October. This is her senior picture, and this should not be any child's senior picture with no hair, but she rocked it, and she always told me, "Mom, it is what it is." And I think she knew that she was not coming home from this. And I think with me being there with her so much, I think I started thinking that too. So we just made the best of every minute we had, and I have to say that we had more fun together in that year than we had had together when she was younger, because we appreciated it more. And it doesn't get any easier. We're coming up on 10 years in November that she's been gone. It doesn't get any easier. People tell you it does. It doesn't. You just get better at surviving and keeping it buried below the surface.
Thank you, Joey.
How far away from the plant do you live?
When I was growing up, my parents' property was separated by a barbed wire fence. And then,
You had a
Then-
sister.
yes, I lost a brother to cancer. My 3 sisters have had cancer. My husband and I lived on the property until Cheyenne was 4 and her older sister was 5. And we purchased property further out Bailey Chapel, which there again was close to the plant. It's on the same road. They played in the creek. They drank the creek water. We never thought anything of it. I mean, we were always told, or I was always told, you know, when I was a kid, "Oh, there's nothing wrong. It's nothing. It won't hurt you." We lived the same way with our kids. They lived wide open. So we eventually got away from there, and we moved to Waverly, about probably 5 miles north of where we lived. But it's not any better. It's still contaminated, but like she said, it is what it is, you know.
What year was she diagnosed and what year did she pass?
She passed away in 2015, November. She was diagnosed in, I guess I could give a lead up to how we found it. She was having some female problems, and we put her on birth control. She was probably 16 at the time, and I think that was in 2013. 2 months into taking the prescription, she came upstairs. The kids' rooms were in the basement. She came upstairs from taking a shower, and she said, "Mom, my leg feels numb," and she said, "It's turning blue," and she pulled her sweatpants down, and I said, "Get your shoes on, we've got to go to the doctor," because I kind of had a feeling it was a clot. So we got to urgent care, and they took about 5 minutes to check her over. They said, we're calling ahead, go to SOMC. They'll take you straight through the emergency room and into surgery. She had a 12-inch blood clot in her left hip, and her lungs were peppered with clots. We didn't know it. She didn't complain. She wasn't sick. And he said any one of those clots from the lungs could have dislodged and killed her. But he said her lungs were peppered with clots. So he removed the 12-inch clot. He put in a filter in her chest to catch any clots that dislodged from the lungs. Put her on blood thinners. And then from there, she started seeing an endocrinologist, and her numbers kept coming up all wonky and, you know, low platelets, low iron, low hemoglobin, whatever. So she went to her surgeon for a checkup, and he said, what is he doing for her condition? I said, in my opinion, nothing. I said, he just tests the same thing every time we go and does the infusions and does the injections. We're not getting anywhere to an answer. And he said, well, there's more going on than this. And I said, well, then we would prefer to go to Cincinnati Children's. That's where she went for her hearing aids. She had high frequency hearing loss, where she wouldn't catch consonant sounds. Like if you said cat, she might think you said bat. So all of her life as a child, she would look straight at you and read your lips while hearing, if she didn't have her hearing aids in, just so that she could know what you were saying. Come to find out after her diagnosis, that is a condition of the disease she had, the high frequency hearing loss. But we went to Children's, we started treatment with them. She would go in sometimes 3 times a week, and it was very costly. My husband worked full-time. I was a substitute teacher, which it didn't affect my job so much because I could just not take those days that she had appointments. Sometimes we were there 3 times a week getting hemoglobin transplants or platelets or iron or whatever she needed. It took them 9 months to diagnose her disease. And they tested her starting with the basics, you know, because of the insurance. You have to jump through your hoops. But it took them 9 months to diagnose her with GATA2 mutation and MDS. You know, like I said, I grew up in that neighborhood, you know that. Just because I'm not exhibiting signs of cancer or showing, you know, being a carrier for anything doesn't mean that I haven't been exposed to it. And those kids may have a type of cancer that doesn't show up for 10 more years. We found hers as a fluke. I mean, had she not gone on the birth control pills for other medical reasons, we never would have known she was sick. She was never sick.
I remember Cheyenne's story very well, and my heart went out to you then, and it still does.
Yeah, it doesn't get any easier.
No.
And I realized today, and I told my husband in the car on the way down here, I said, you know, I said, for the past 9 years, I've thought that the hardest thing I ever did was lose her. But now I realize the hardest thing I've ever done is reliving it every day, every morning when I wake up, running through all of it every day until I go to bed. And I wouldn't wish it on anybody, and that's why I've gotten involved. I don't care about the money. I'm tired of seeing these kids get sick. I was a substitute teacher for Brad's son, Braden. He was the sweetest kid. And it's not fair.
Hi y'all, how's everybody doing? I'm Brad Lykins in Piketon, father of Braden Lykins. Lost him about almost 5 years ago. This March will be 5 years. So it's tore my life up. I got wonderful people to help me. Thanks to Vina's giving me information to these gentlemen, and Dwayne and Emily and Gina, and got a lot of support in that area. So I got a lot of good people I'm surrounded by, so that's a blessing. But what I had to endure in March of 6th to March the 8th was pure hell. You don't go for 1 second having your child with you. I literally dropped him off at the hospital. As he walked in the hospital, like there was nothing wrong with him at all. And if anyone knows Waverly, if you're at the hospital on the hill and you look straight across, you can see Walmart. That's how close this place is. Not even a mile. I drove down there. I got Tylenol. I got some turkey. I went straight back up there. And that's just in that nick of time. We're talking not even an hour. I drive back, get up, I pull in a park, and I look and I pulled in, I was parked, and I was having to see a woman in the mirror stick her head out this glass and look at me. I'm like, what in the world is that? And for some reason, something just grabbed my soul and just, I didn't even have to know. I just felt it. And the world's never been the same since. It's changed my psychological mind, my appearance. It's destroyed my life. It's all because of this place. And I'm not the only one that's affected by it. I went in, and my wife was in the Sally Port of this hospital. And when I seen her, right before I walked in there, she said, sent me a text that says, "Get in here now." And I just didn't really want to go in there because I knew something wasn't right. Well, I get in there, and this is when I found out he had leukemia. It was the very second they told me he was life-flighting because he was bleeding on his brain with a white cell blood count of 154,000. I'm pretty sure an adult human, correct me if I'm wrong, is anywhere between 4,000 and 11,000 for an adult human. My son had the white cell blood count of 15 adult humans. Don't even know how he was even walking. So they come and got him. And the last words I heard my son tell me was, "This is the worst day of my life." I heard my son say it the last time I ever heard him speak. And I'll tell millions of people. There could be millions of you standing out in front of me right now, and I'd still tell everybody about him because he was wonderful. He wasn't a normal 13-year-old. He was a humble old soul, is what he was. And I loved him to death. And I still love him. Because I believe in heaven. And I believe that's where my son's at. And I'll see him one day. Guarantee you that. Because some days that's all you have to hang on to is your faith.
Amen.
And that's what I got plenty of. But when they took him, they flew him up there. And I believe he died on the way there. Because when you get up there, I was a transport officer for a prison system for 14 years. Not a transport officer, just for like the last about a year and a half I was a transport officer, and I've seen a lot of stuff, and I got to learn how to read medical terminology. And when you get up to a room and your son is on a cooling bed with a diaper and all this stuff hooked to his head and he's non-responsive, and you lay there and you sit there and you sit there, well, I don't know if my wife picked up on it or not, but he had blood on him back in here, which means I believe he just started pouring blood out of every orifice on his head, because the brain had pretty much just, it didn't go to blood anymore, it was sludge. I know that's what caused the brain to burst and bleed, and that's what killed him. So the only way I can explain it, if you have kids, it would be like you walking 10 feet behind your child, and then walking in front of him, and then you turn a corner. And when you get around that corner, they're no longer there. Just vanish. That's why I go through that a lot still to the day. But look, I got these wonderful men. This woman and these people back here. Dwayne Pullman is a wonderful investigative reporter. He's helped me out a lot. Emily, Gina, they've all reached out. They're trying things for our community. I'm just sick and tired of everybody. That place thinks they're untouchable. I'm sick and tired of it. I'm not the only parent that's went through this. I'm just sick and tired of seeing it. But it's poisoning. The whole community just poisoned. Didn't just poison my son. It's poisoning the water, the ground, the air. Everybody's getting this dosage, not just us. And I really just want to move away from all of it. I just want to move way out somewhere else. But you know what? You'll go somewhere else, and there'll be something else there. All these big communities and factories. It's great for I do not resent anybody that works at the plant. I don't. You got to make a living for your family. I get that. But don't act like there's nothing going on down there that's not illegal, because I guarantee there's a ton of it. And I'm not a bit scared of any of them. I can tell you that right now. Not from what they've done to me. If these men need something from me, I'll do it.
Nothing is more painful than what you've already done.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I had a guy sitting in my chair yesterday, and he said he had to put a dog down. He said, "This is like losing a child." I said,
No, it's not.
I don't think so. I know this. I just put my dog down a couple of weeks ago. But I didn't realize I don't know, today I just kept getting drawn. I'm like, well, it's God talked to me and said, you need to go to that meeting. And I was in the middle of a birthday party. I told my wife, I said, I got to get home. I should have been here early. I apologize. But I'm here now. And if anybody in this room has ever went through what I went through, or even a partial of what I went through, I apologize for that too. Because it's pure hell losing a kid. It don't happen in one day and you forget about it 2 years later. It's an everyday thing. You got to deal with it. This year's his graduation picture. All the kids in the senior class this year literally put Braden's name with the cancer ribbon on their shoulder. The whole senior class. I said, that speaks volumes to me. I've always been a poor man, and I'll probably die a poor man, but you know what? I'm a blessed man, and also I got a lot of good family and friends, and that's more than money could ever pay for, in my eyes.
I have a soft voice. My mother became the first female janitor foreman at the A plant in the 70s. I was just about to start high school. Within a short time, like a year, she came down with cancer the first time. Had surgery. So of course she's at the point, she has 2 children. What do I do with my kids? I've got to figure this out. Has surgery and it seems to be everything's okay. Exactly a year later, it's back. So she goes in for surgery again. At the same time as when I hear about Owen Thompson, his mom had been my school librarian. He has brain cancer. He works there too. I'm thinking that, you know, I live in a wonderful area and I'm on a farm and clean air and clean food and all these blessings. Then I start kind of putting things together and question it, but young teen, I try to go ahead and ignore it. So I'll just fast forward in that 2010, my mother started having extreme fatigue. She was not herself, and she was a woman that was a force to be met with. She would work circles around you, myself included. So we started going through, as you call it, the hoops, trying to get this test done and that test done. And of course, her no longer being employed there, she didn't have that good A plan insurance. She was on Social Security and ended up getting Medicaid until the card come through. Well, once we go to Columbus for a biopsy, she has this mass in her liver between the lobes. 3 attempts to penetrate that. It was so encapsulated and encrusted. So we're going down High Street and she says, well, if it comes back that it's cancer, I'm not going through this again. And I literally stopped in the middle of High Street. I said, you will do something. And of course I got told, when did you become the parent? Well, when you decided you weren't going to fight. She finally gets her white card. Our first visit at the oncologist, they have the assumption that she is just Medicaid. I'm like, no, she has a white card, and that changed her appointment, her getting set up for some chemo treatment. The whole thing changed. That changed dynamics. I mean, your insurance, it matters. Your employment matters, because if you don't have the employment, you don't have the insurance. But if you are under the assumption of Medicaid, you know, you might be waiting who knows how long. So I brought that up on the table, and it changed that dynamic. So we do all these tests. She tries to start her treatment with Dr. Inishito. Her platelets would not allow her to get full doses for her cancer. I left him for a short time, and she intentionally didn't tell me things. I come back, we need to see a doctor at Riverside. He wanted to put in a drain. It didn't happen because my mother was planning this Easter breakfast party at our local church that my church had had for many years, sunrise services, and then they stopped for a while. And in all honesty, looking back on that, there is no doubt in my mind this was her goodbye party to her community, to the family that came and participated. Within 2 weeks, my mother turned as orange as pumpkin, just like overnight, it seemed. She didn't want to go to her appointment, but I forced her hand at it. I said, you have to go. So we go in to Dr. Inishita, and he sends her to the hospital. They start doing their blood work. He says, I'm sending you to Columbus. Maybe they can, maybe they can't. So my brother and I are in Columbus with our mother. I give her a shower on Sunday. Stayed with her 2 days. Went down, got my brother. They tried to do a surgery. It failed. I had to come back home. I got a phone call after not being able to reach her. You need to get up here. So I'm driving to Columbus. I get there, all the family's there. My mom's awake. Hospice has been called in. She has a pizza party because she, that was her choice. They offer food, water, drinks for family. So she wanted a pizza party and laughed about it. 2 more days, my mom is gone. And the very last words I ever heard her say was, I love you, baby girl. And like the rest of you, I am so sick of this place being swept under the rug and being allowed.
Hello everyone, my name is Caleb Andrew White. I'm 28 years old and I've been a Scioto County resident my entire life. I grew up about 10.4 miles from the A plant. My grandfather, he worked there. He was committed to that plant for over 30 years. He gave the better part of his life and my family's life to that plant. We're about 10 miles from Zahn's Corner School as well. I'm working with Dr. Ketterer to try to get samples to kind of, give that solidity that there is contamination there. But looking through my family history and all of the ties I have to that plant, it's undeniable that it has had a negative impact on my life. My grandfather passed away in 2019. He had extremely aggressive forms of esophageal and pancreatic cancer. It claimed his life. That man gave his life to that plant. They told him that it was going to save our families and our livelihood. It was going to make things better. It was going to give us food on the table. And instead, it destroyed our livelihood. It took that man from us much earlier than he should have been taken, and he did not deserve to meet the end he met. I don't know if many of you know about pancreatic cancer, but it is not a pretty nor pleasant process. My grandmother also passed away, and to this day we still don't have any conclusions or answers as to why or what happened. She spent the last 12 years of her life in a state of confusion. I had mentioned before my grandfather, he was a guard at the plant for over 30 years. My grandma, she was a devoted wife, a devoted mother, a devoted grandmother, and she liked making sweet treats, which is not a crime. That's not a crime. She liked to take them to my grandpa at the plant, and she liked to, you know, sell them to his buddies and make sure he had them for work. And my mother and me as a child, we would go with her, and we would take these treats to the plant. The crime was that we were unknowingly exposed to terrible, horrible chemicals as we were just trying to take my grandfather a sweet treat while he worked to provide for our family. That is the crime. That is the wrongdoing. That is the thing that is not okay. And I'm not the only one that has a story like this in Scioto County or Pike County. If we can all come together and we can tell our stories, and unanimously we bring our voice, and we bring our voice loud, and we don't give up, we can make a difference. We may not be able to save our children from it or ourselves from it, but maybe one day there will be a generation that has not been plagued by the vicious chemicals that taint our livelihood in Scioto and Pike County. And I truly believe that. I myself, I am currently dealing with systemic lupus erythematosus. It is not a genetic thing within my family. I'm undergoing genetic testing for a variant on my COL3A1 gene. I had no idea what that even was until a couple weeks ago, but it is a gene that is associated with vascular Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. If you're not familiar with vascular Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, it is something that corrupts your entire vascular system of your body. Majority of people will have an aneurysm or an aortic dissection or arterial rupture before the age of 40. There are most life-threatening events around the age or before the age of 29. This is not something that, you know, has a lot of attention drawn to it. It's not something that has a lot of knowledge, but it is something that is very real. And something that also is very real in this area is there are so many genetic mutations and anomalies, from immunosuppressing diseases to things like lupus that just turn your immune system haywire and it starts attacking you for no reason. And cancer, there's so many lung diseases in this area. There are cardiac diseases in this area. Our lands are plagued because of this plant. And I genuinely believe that it is time that we all come together and we use our voice and we stand up and we say to hell with that. It's enough. Enough is enough. The plant has taken enough life, it has taken enough time, it has taken enough resource, and it has taken enough hope. And it is our turn as the citizens of Scioto and Pike County to take the hope back. Because the hope in this area is not the DOE's to control. It's ours. And we deserve that. That's all I really have to say. I didn't write anything down. I'm just some 28-year-old guy from Scioto County. I wanted to speak from my heart because I think that's what will make a change. I think that's what will make a difference, because we're all human and we're all connected through love. So thank you guys for your time. God bless.